ARPneuro. Jake is a fitness enthusiast who has always been passionate about working out since he was young and started playing sports. His interest in health and fitness industry grew when he began participating in the ultra races and the adventure races that lasted for days with a high dropout rate of 90%. Jake was fascinated by how the human body performed and its ability to recover after handling extreme circumstances. With over 15, not 50, you're not 50 yet. 15 years of experience as a CSCS-certified strength coach, Jake has dedicated himself to optimizing athletic performance, strength, and overall health in a private studio, Relentless Fit 365. He has recently transitioned from private training and now serves as a chief training officer at ARPneuro Therapy, where he guides doctors, professional athletes, and private patients in utilizing ARP technology for enhanced training, rehabilitation, and performance. Welcome, Jake, to this podcast.
Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, and all of that sounds so much better when it comes out of your voice than mine, for sure. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Well, Jake, this is just so fun. We met 4 years ago during COVID.
Correct.
And you probably don't remember it, but in Minnesota,
yep,
you do remember.
I do remember. Yeah. How do I forget a face like yours?
You're so sweet. Anyway, COVID shut down everything. We weren't able to, well, I didn't go to the gym anyway, but my husband at the time wasn't able to utilize the gym and work out. And we were looking for options to help improve ourselves and do things at home. And I remember meeting you, understanding how you could up your performance and enhance your muscles. However, the beauty of this device for me has been recovery and helping with injuries. So I would like you to begin and share with folks about the ARPneuro and what this device is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ways I like to start this off by is comparing why it's completely different to a TENS unit, which is what most people think of when they think of an electrical current device. So it's, other than the fact that it contracts muscles, that's kind of where that type of technology really separates itself from what we are. So very, very briefly on the TENS unit, it contracts your muscles on alternating current. So that really restricts the way or how fast that it can actually get to your body with a pulse rate, meaning your body is able to contract a muscle between 2 and 25 times per second. But it also does it from a direct current type wave. So something like a TENS unit is foreign to the body. What is it good for? It's often good for just kind of like a pain blocker, and in some cases getting blood flow into that certain area. The moment you shut it off, that's pretty much when the TENS unit's need is kind of over with. It's more of a physiological type treatment. So when you look into our device, we actually run from a DC current harmonious with the way your brain contracts a muscle. So remember what I said, your brain contracts a muscle between 2 and 25 times per second. Kind of depends on, what we're talking about here. This harmonious with the brain contracts your muscles up to 500 times per second. So essentially what you're able to do is you're able to get through an extreme movement, and get into through that eccentric movement and really open up your range of motion. And then at the same time, you're doing that much more repage than what you could do just by yourself. So we often say that this is a movement therapy, but it's kind of like doing physical therapy on steroids, so to speak. So that's kind of the sort of the quicker version of it, but that's basically where the technology starts on a DC wave.
So the TENS unit is pretty much a recovery unit. This is also amplified recovery, as you said, 245 times per second more. But this device not only helps you recover, but then it gives you the bump to improve, right?
Correct. We do use so we have two technologies, and I should have been more clear with that. And we have a take-home unit that is it's often very popular for performance side after the injury portion is over. It's like, what else do you use a TENS unit for other than, once that pain goes away or the injury is fixed? There's no need for it. And again, like I said, it's only a superficial type treatment. In our case, once you get to that point where you're able to fix it, now you can actually go through movements where it's contracting, you're building muscle, it's more of a hypertrophy type training. And the beauty of this technology is you're essentially increasing the weight without putting pressure on your joints. So you can get stronger and you don't necessarily need all of that weight cracking up your joints. You can certainly use a lot less weight. There's been cases that I've used this larger unit and I didn't use any weight at all, but still was able to build muscle.
So what does a small unit look like?
Great question. I always have one nearby. We do a lot of training here, and I'll just hold it up right here so you can see. So it's, pretty close to the size of a cell phone. It's a little bit thicker. And then, you can essentially take this gray piece off, which is what I often recommend during the movement. And then it gets even thinner. And then it just goes kind of on a fanny pack. And then it's great for movement therapy. And again, that I'll say movement a lot in this podcast because this truly it's at its best because you're able to get through movements. Unfortunately on alternating current, it's going to really pull everything on the contraction side. Now I can force an eccentric, if I really wanted to on the alternating current, but it's eventually going to go back to this contraction mode. With this one, what you'll notice is not only will you be able to get to eccentric, but you'll also be able to increase that range a lot better. So it's fluid movements, but it's also helping to retrain those movements if there was any type of compensatory pattern.
So is it fair to say, Jake, that this device has obviously been utilized a great deal in the professional arena for sports, baseball, basketball, football?
Absolutely. It's very safe to say that. It was our starting point. It's still our bread and butter because a lot of the athletes, anytime you hear about a story where an athlete comes back in a fraction of the time that they were expected to come back, there's a very likelihood they were on this technology to do that. One of the problems we get though is, why isn't this everywhere? And I think one of the biggest setbacks we faced with being into the professional sports industry is all these athletes want to use it as a competitive edge. So they may tell their buddies occasionally. A lot of times what we see is when they retire, they start to talk about it. But for the most part, they want to keep it to themselves. So we've strategically tried to find new avenues to build this technology to the masses.
So it sounds like there's two devices. One maybe a professional team uses, the trainers use, maybe chiropractors. Who's using the big device?
Yeah, great question. So ultimately, the big device is a class 2 medical device that requires a doctor's prescription or supervision. Now you can actually, if you wanted to purchase the large unit for yourself, athletes do it all the time, individuals do it all the time. You certainly can. It's definitely more expensive, but the difference is you would need a doctor to write a prescription for you to actually own the device. The other one is the PRS. Now, I mentioned that our RX, the larger unit or the class 2 medical device, that contracts your muscles at 500 times per second. The smaller unit, the PRS, it contracts your muscles at 245 times per second. So you're still getting a significant difference in what your body can do, just at a kind of a toned down version so we can make it over the counter for everybody.
Yeah, and also for the smaller device is just more portable for at-home use. That's the device that we purchased 4 years ago. And I have used it. I found it to be a real gem for recovery. I had a fractured on my foot, and it greatly helped improve it. Can you explain about like the foot baths or how it might help heal bones?
So absolutely. You bring up a protocol that's been super successful for all sorts of things, not just athletes. That particular protocol takes it outside where we've brought it into podiatry clinics, which eventually, chiropractors are starting to treat certain things with the feet as a result of that. Something like diabetic neuropathy, plantar fasciitis, for athletes, high ankle sprains, turf toe, all of this works really well with a foot bath. So yeah, Susan, is essentially what you're talking about is your feet go into water, believe it or not. And that sounds almost like backwards thinking because it is electrical current, but mind you, it is on DC, so it's perfectly safe. And the current in the water only acts as a magnifier. So essentially, we use that direct current wave to our advantage. And what happens is the current will start on one end. It's usually the black lead, and that current runs towards the opposite pad. So we have a pad on the bottom of the foot and then a pad on the opposite quad. And essentially that current is trying to communicate to that opposite pad. The reason why that's helpful is that pressure will help draw out inflammation, which is very good for something like neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy, even plantar fasciitis, if there's any inflammation or high ankle sprains. But not only that, you're still getting those muscle contractions and building blood flow into that area. And your body will do that naturally, for sure. Just like in physical therapy, that's going to work naturally. But think about physical therapy for a moment. And let's just say, and this is just a guess, but let's just say it takes 5,000 reps for something to improve. And you have to go through all those reps, all those sessions, weeks, sometimes turn into months. This is where this technology makes it that much easier and that much quicker to get the job done, because what can usually take weeks often takes minutes or a few sessions to get to those numbers. So when it comes to something like the foot bath, couple that with the water where it acts as a pressure, almost like a vice grip, that squeezes out more inflammation and certainly helps that improvement in the ankle a whole lot better for sure.
Yeah, it helps, and it also helps alleviate the pain and the pressure while you're doing that. And I think for listeners, so often I hear about back injuries, shoulders, people that are at their desk all day long and they're sitting in the same posture 8 hours a day and they just can't get relief. How would you utilize the ARPneuro, the small device, for someone like that?
Yeah, and that's a great point. We have a lot of clients that come to us for those very reasons, just minor aches and pains or chronic aches and pains. And it's very simple. It's not, we do have a lot of videos online that you can actually watch and go through if you have a specific condition. But if it's essentially back pain, it's as easy as placing the black pad above and the red pad below that pain point and just running light contractions, even if you're just sitting there. Now, again, this is always going to be run better on a movement, but if it's a case where you have to sit at your desk all day, you're better off to be able to contract muscles to give you some help on support than actually just sitting there and not taking any current at all. So even people who travel a lot, have utilized this for that specific reason. Athletes will essentially surround their knees and just travel the whole way. You did mention where you were in pain and you'd use it for recovery. I guess my question to you is, what did you do on the recovery? Because I'd like to go into that too.
Well, the blood flow, I felt like my issue, first of all, is I can't take any aspirin or NSAIDs at all for pain. I break out in hives. So I'm without Tylenol, without Advil, I'm without all those products. And I need something for relief because it hurts after a break or a sprain. And I've had several injuries. And I will put it on the blood flow and I can actually do certain things. If I'm doing a foot bath, obviously I cannot. But when I had another injury to my coccyx area, I fell and fractured that. I was able to actually put the device on my lower hips and then my lower back. And I stuck the device in my pocket and then put it eventually on a fanny pack. And I worked 8 hours a day. I was getting ready for Thanksgiving. I had guests coming. I had things to do and did not have any pain medicine whatsoever. And I was probably my level of pain was at a 7. So it was my pain relief actually utilizing this device.
I love hearing that because it is originally why a lot of patients end up buying it, because of pain. And I often don't talk about the pain portion because we want to, I think the idea behind it is what it does to correct. But it's nice to hear from somebody who actually did purchase it to say you were as high as a level 7 and it did reduce a lot of your pain, because we love hearing that as well. I guess my question from there is, has it come back, or have you been able to sort of keep that pain level lower? Or do you have any pain at all?
Well, with my lower coccyx, it was kind of fun in the fact that it was recovered at about 4 to 6 weeks versus 8 to 12 weeks. I went to a surgeon um, in February at about 8 to 10 weeks, and it was healed. It was completely healed, 100%. Now I do different modalities as well, but I didn't have any pain. I want to say between 4 and 6 weeks, it was completely gone. I didn't even know I had an injury any longer. And then by going to the surgeon, I was actually able to do an activity like downhill ski after he gave me permission and the clean bill of health to go for it. I was in good shape. So no, knock on wood, I'm in good shape.
That's great to hear. So one of the things you talked about, I think, within that is the blood flow. Would you mind if I kind of went into the background of how that actually works?
Please share that with others. I just assume everyone knows it, but this is great.
Well, and I think the thing with blood flow is that what's hard for people to decipher is that you don't really feel anything. For the most part, it's you're well, let me kind of back up about the technology. So it runs on a biphasic wave where you actually have a contraction wave, and there is a secondary wave that's we consider on the lower end, very similar to the way microcurrent works, where your muscles aren't necessarily going to feel it, but you're still getting that pressure. So, and I'll explain that pressure in just a moment, but you do have a button there, and it's very easy on the PRS. It's this one right here, this main pulse suspend. You just kind of push that. You can have it maxed all the way to the top. But once you turn that main contraction wave off, now you're just running a blood flow wave. And, it's been proven over and over again that increased blood flow into certain areas is going to increase the recovery and healing time. Much better than ice can do, for sure, which is why we often go to either heat, or if you have something like this, you want to go to blood flow because the recovery time is going to be a lot quicker. And this is able to actually pull that off, where you can leave this on blood flow for as long as the battery life is, and just generating blood flow into a specific area. Let's just say, for instance, my shoulder's in pain. Or if I'm a pitcher, you surround that area and you're running blood flow instead of, just ice, and you can run blood flow between 6 and 8 hours. Now, when you wake up the next day, you've lubricated that whole area with healing, and it's significantly recovery time is significantly faster as a result of that.
Yeah,
That's our main
I
point.
know. When we did go skiing, Barry had a terrible injury, pulled something on his upper leg, and he did blood flow every night and slept with it, and he skied every single morning. It was like, I don't know how I can do this, but it's working, and didn't slow him down either. So pretty exciting to be able to have a device like this. And I look at like young mothers. I feel like this device, I've got it on my website for a reason. This is something that I believe in. It works. It's an amazing product in that it offers relief and pain. And I really, truly believe that people that are suffering from injuries, especially lower back injuries, I've heard of so many mothers that are picking up a basket of clothes and boom, their back is out. They're going to their chiropractor, they're seeing their doctor, they're taking lots of pain medicine. Here is something so simple. You're not ingesting anything. You're not hurting yourself. It is something that's so beneficial for your body. It just helps in a multitude of areas for the individual who's at home, or someone who just can't get up, or they're really facing an old injury that they're trying to recover from.
Yeah, so well said. And I, we used to lean on that. We probably should lean on it more, where it's natural to the body, it's drug free, it's opioid free. And, the wonderful thing is you don't have to be super active. I think you said that for this to be effective. In fact, if you had muscle atrophy, this does a great job in, you know, kind of working that muscle again, waking it back up and getting it to fire for you. And essentially that's exactly what we do with post-op patients. And instead of them just laying there doing nothing or waiting to put pressure on your joints, you can actually strengthen muscles before they even go into the physical therapy side. So you're actually working that muscle a lot sooner than you could and go back to physical therapy. So yeah, I love hearing that portion, and I'm glad you saw some relief from it because you know that's one of the reasons we're in this business. We love to see it at work.
Is there a particular injury that you're treating more than others? Now, when you go to the website, you can look at all the different things that you treat for. And that's on my website. It goes immediately to the ARPneuro's website, and it lists, you know, from ankles to your back, to your core, elbows, your foot, hip, knees, neck, shoulder, TMJ, and wrist and hand. That's a lot of areas for treating.
Yeah, you know, essentially, if we can get muscle contraction and there's an area to get blood flow, there's going to be a benefit to use this device. And most of the pain is often due to some muscle probably not firing that's not even located in the pain area. And that's another reason why people get such relief for this, because it's able to activate a muscle that perhaps was dormant. And now your muscles are firing the way they should be, and you know that pain is going away because you're neurologically retraining everything, you know, within your whole chain. So yeah, it's very common for, if someone has shoulder pain, there's going to be benefits. If someone has ankle pain, there's going to be benefits. I do think I have my favorites to see where a lot of success has been. Shoulders
Mhm.
are certainly one that we've seen tremendous success. You can we often see range of motion increases immediately, and something like the shoulder, to get any type of range back, is significant, especially to reduce pain.
Yeah. And so if you were using it on the shoulder, Jake, would you place it like in the front and then in the back for the pads, like the red and then the black in the back? I mean, what would you do, or is it specific to each particular shoulder injury?
Yeah, so that's a good question in the sense that there's a simple way, and then there are more detailed ways if you chose to dig a little bit deeper. The
Mhm.
simple way is you can essentially just surround the area, and you nailed it. So black in front, red in back, or flip it. You can go black in back and red in front, and you're going to see some benefit to that. Now we have done a lot of treatments over the years, and as a result of that, we've come up with different pad placements that might be better for certain things. Adhesive capsulitis, or otherwise known as frozen shoulder, is one of them, and we have specific placements that we think are better based on what we've done over the years and the success they had. And those are really simple to get. I mean, you can grab those online. They're on our website, or some of those are even on our YouTube channel through our website. So very easy to kind of focus that.
Okay. And what about for back injuries? Do you have different modalities that you're using or suggest for back injuries? I know you work with some chiropractic institutes, don't you?
We do, and that's been when I said we pivoted, not completely, but we started to pivot outward from athletes. Chiropractors really were our bread and butter to start off with. So we have quite a few, and mainly because their scope is so large, they can cover great territory, and they're able to run with our machine really well as a result of that. Them and physical therapists as well. But it's not restricting any other doctor. They just have that broad range. Low back, I can give a placement right now, just that most chiros would understand, because a lot of low back pain is attributed to your glutes and sometimes your knee, in particular your VMO, your vastus medialis, that muscle just above your knee on the inside. So you could place a pad there and then right on the side of your butt cheek. And believe it or not, even though it's not on low back, those are often good breakdown points to kind of fire up muscle that essentially will relieve low back pain. One of the things we usually get, and this is where neurologically it makes a lot of sense that we're retraining and we're trying to fire up things and get the brain to sort of help work with us, is a lot of times what'll happen is if I do have low back pain, usually again, and I might have said this in the beginning, that's just the symptom. What tends to happen is there's some other area outside of that, some other muscle breakdown or dormant muscle that's not firing, that is either creating a compensation or as a result of that is forcing other muscles to have to take over. So one of the major ones is glute med. That's a big one that's often not firing. And usually the secondary is probably VMO. So those two particular placements tend to remove back pain the quickest. Now, there's other placements you can make it easier and, it might feel better, but as far as fixing, that's a great pad placement.
So if they went to a chiropractor, I see this to be a huge advantage because so many people leave that office feeling better. And this would be, I could see maybe an adjustment and then have them do blood flow for like a half an hour after their adjustment. And then they would just feel so at ease leaving. Is that how they're utilizing it? I've never done that with a
Yeah.
professional.
So in some cases, I think a lot of this with clinics, it's case by case. Some chiros like to actually do the ARP treatment first and then adjust. And then there's other chiropractors that have the theory that I want to adjust first and then do the treatment because you'll get more out of it. I see both kind of positions. As far as I'm concerned, I will say whether you're doing the treatments before or after or blood flow before or after, what we have found is that the adjustment lasts longer and is more effective regardless, so long as you're incorporating this technology. Now, I will say I have a preference when, I'm going to the chiropractors I use. I personally like to go through the ARP treatment first and then get adjusted afterwards. And the reason why is the ARP treatment will open up the range and loosen your muscles and get certain areas to fire up. And then you get a better adjustment as a result of that afterwards. I personally like it that way. But I can also see why you would utilize it, the other way as well.
Sure. So chiropractors use it. This is a device that we can use, in our homes. You can travel with it, which is great. When I fly, I absolutely place it on my lower back and middle of my back, and I just put it on blood flow for flying. And you don't have, the swelling of the ankles. You don't have that sore back for long flights. It just makes such a difference.
Yeah. And, it's funny because you use it for flying too. And I knew a lot of clients and even to this day who still do that. What are you feeling with blood flow? Or do you feel any of it? Just so your viewers can hear.
Well, typically the airplane, the seats are not comfortable. It's sitting on something very hard. And I would say about 45 minutes into a flight, you're just sore. It's just that lower back tendency sore. And I don't have back issues. So I'm not really dealing with any significant injury or problematic plane. But by putting it on there, it was just a push. It was just ease. And I was able to, watch a movie. I could do whatever. And I really forgot that I was getting stuck in that same position for a long period of time. It definitely helps you with more comfort in flying.
I love it. Yeah, it was great for me. Most of my flying, believe it or not, was during COVID, and that was great when COVID first happened, and then post COVID, everybody started jamming into airplanes again. And that's when I started utilizing it a lot more.
Yeah. And I think with those airplanes are a little smaller, it seems like all the time, a little more crowded. They've added more rows. So you are in a particular position for a long period of time if you've got a lengthy flight. And gosh, you got to move around somehow, but this really helps. And again, the fact that it was so portable, if you have to get up and use the restroom, it's right in your pocket, it's right on a belt. It doesn't matter. It's simple to use and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is I think we get a lot of questions. You just answer the question, are you allowed to fly with it? And the answer is yes. I've had some weird looks sometimes of what is that device, or they think it's a TENS unit, but I've never had any problems flying with it.
I think people look at me and wish they had one because they know I must be doing something comfortable.
Correct.
Some
Yeah.
sort of magic in that bag.
That's actually a great point. I think I agree with you.
Everyone's always curious about someone else's business, but it's been really great. So again, you treat so many areas as far as people go. And again, I think about the neck and the shoulders, the lower back for the individual at home. Someone who is a cyclist, for example, how are they utilizing the device?
Yeah, good one. For cyclists, that can depend. It's a little bit different than most athletes. It would depend on where their pains are at. And again, we would adjust that. If they had hip issues, there's placements that I think would be beneficial there. And that is again as simple as going to the website and it'll show simple placements. Sometimes you can go right to the video, or there's actually categories right on the website where it's just quick pad placements. So you don't have to waste a lot of time with it. But yeah, it just depends on what injuries they're going through.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was a little surprised at was the TMJ, that you treat that. How on earth are you going to do is stick it on your head? I mean, how are you going to treat TMJ?
That's actually a good question. Since you said that, it's harder to explain. So those of you who are able to watch it, and I'll still explain it if you're listening as well. It's involving two channels. So we'll just consider that's the black channel. And then this would just be the red, even though it's white. So that would be our red channel right here. Essentially, all we're doing was replacing black on one side of the jawline and the red on the other side. And you can use sticky pads, and I'll kind of explain the other version. I actually like the other version better, but I'll talk to the sticky pads at first. And you want to keep your hands placed on those areas, and you're just turning up the current to what your tolerance is. And in this particular case, being around the jawline, the tolerance, we're not talking big numbers here. We just want to get a light contraction where we're moving through. And that's a case where you're just opening your mouth. I always say overemphasize saying the alphabet, so try to open your mouth as wide as possible, saying A and B and all the way to Z. And then once you do that, you reverse it. So in the case of a PRS, you just pull the pad off and you place it on the other side, and then you're running the opposite side same way, again turning that current up as much as they can tolerate, but making sure you can open up and say the letter with good form. I mean, you don't want to contract so much where it locks your jaw up.
No, no one want that. What about how long? I mean, go through the alphabet a couple of times.
Yeah, I usually say a couple of sets of that, or give it, between 3 to 5 minutes, and then run it reverse 3 to 5 minutes. And you can run through it again, with something like TMJ. I try to keep it shorter, and sweeter. And then if you have to do it multiple times, it's so much easier to kind of stack on another set if you need to. But there is another option if you don't like the sticky pads. It comes with, they're little rubber discs. They're called clamshell pads, and that's with a sponge. And it's just some light water that goes around. I like the clamshells specifically because I feel like it kind of goes around the edge of the jawline a lot better than the sticky pads. It tends to be a little more comfortable with the clamshells as well, but the same is true. You're kind of holding, those pads in a position and then just running it the same way through the alphabet and then hit it reverse.
That's great. That's really exciting. When you think about TMJ, off to the dentist, not knowing what to do, probably grabbing a bottle of aspirin right from the get. I mean, that's a tough one to treat.
It is, and we've had some extreme cases with it. We've had a few singers who have used it. Some broken jaws that were coming back to recovery. So it's been able to really prove itself. And we're talking whether it's on the PRS side, which is the take home unit, or even on the treatment side. I would say the more extreme cases, that's one of those areas you want to look for an ARPneuro clinician who's able to treat. And then we recommend that the PRS, the smaller unit, just is a maintenance tool in between those treatments.
Yeah, that does make sense, going to the professional first. So we're getting into spring all over the country, and there's going to be a lot of cycling, a lot of running. People probably doing a little spring raking, to get things in order. So there's going to be a lot of sore shoulders, lower back, different issues. And this would be a really great device for people to utilize.
Correct. And then I would also lean on something that we never used to talk about as much, but that's the performance side. So when you're talking the nice weather, you're also talking this is when usually everybody in their mindset, they want to tighten up, certain areas of their body or start to lose weight. This does a great job in helping to redevelop muscle strength, redevelop stability, and help build what you probably lost over, sitting at a desk or having jobs where you're not as active. So this will help kind of mediate a lot of those problems.
So actually using this device, preparing for, maybe they have a marathon coming up or a bike race coming up in the spring, they could utilize it on their legs to get those muscles going better. How would you suggest something like that?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I will say when you're talking, if it's cycling or if it's triathlon or any type of endurance, I wish I had access to this years ago when I did some of those things that were long events and had something like this where I was able to get light contractions or blood flow because the recovery it was paramount in activities like that. So yeah, surrounding the knees, just even surrounding the legs, quad and hamstring would be a game changer for any of those people who got involved in sports like that for sure.
So would they use it to prepare for the activity by amping up well, how they would use it to prepare, strengthen for better endurance. And then after the event, then they use it for recovery on blood flow.
Sure. Yeah. So both ends they're important. Now, just to give you a background, you mentioned it, and I guess that's where I had a little partiality against this technology years ago when I was first learning about it because I was a strength coach before that. So it was all about weights and old school compound movements that I saw benefits from. And there wasn't a technology, there certainly wasn't a pill that was able to fix that. I will say, this has been tested. We've run it through the ringer. I've personally run it through the ringer as far as strength is concerned. And this is a great tool to be able to lessen the weight and still get the benefits of lifting heavy and getting stronger. So this is able to kind of replicate those contractions. And I would always say you can drop your weight 20, 30, 40% while increasing the power here. So you're less likely to have injury now because of a bad, weight session or whatever the case was. And then to your point, after all that training, you also have that blood flow feature and then light contractions and certain pad placements that help for recovery. So yeah, you're hitting it on both ends, which is the iron triangle for any of those athletes that are performing.
Yeah. Wow. It's just again, it is a great device. And I just think for people at home, it makes so much sense. I know your audience has always been a professional team, sports-minded athletes, but I just see this as a device that you share with others, let people use it, and help one another out.
Yeah. Oh, and I would say we're hoping to open this up to the masses. We don't want it. We think everybody in their own minds and in their own way still has that athlete mindset, whether they're playing that sport anymore. That's beside the point. This is great for weekend warriors. This is great for anybody. And we're trying to get that out there so more people can actually have access to it. So yeah, well, while athletes, we still have that. I think this technology has a lot more that it can give to the rest of the people.
Well, and I think too, the benefit of being able to work on your arms, if you've got an injury to your lower back, sometimes you can't go to the gym and just do things with your arms because you're harming your back. This is something you could sit, have weights in your hand, increase the resistance, utilizing the ARP and doing it and strengthening those arm muscles or even the leg muscles. There's things we can do, even if we have to be sedate due to an injury, to improve ourselves because we're maybe preparing to go to something, participate in something, but we've just got a little setback.
That was beautifully said. I have absolutely nothing to add to that.
Okay. This is
Beautiful.
good, Jake. Well, I just got to thank you. This is wonderful. This device is on my website. I've got a place for it because this isn't something that you guys asked me to do. This is something that I wanted to do because it is something I share with a lot of people and tell them what a great item it is. And again, I've had it for 4 years, and I think others should have something like this in their home as well.
Well, Susan, I'm honored to be here, and I'm more honored that that the device was helpful for you, and now you want to share it, and that humbles us for sure. So whatever you need on our end, you just let us know.
Okay, that sounds good, Jake. I sure appreciate it. And as far as finding the ARPneuro, it is on my website under resources, and you will see it as an affiliate for this company. This is just a great device. And if you have questions about it, you can always email me or go direct to ARPneuro, and they will be able to answer your questions as well. But I think the way your website is set up, once you get into how would utilize this device and hit that button, you'll be able to see all the little videos telling you what you can do with it. And if it's not for you, that's fine too. You know, there's ice, there's bands. I mean, are there other things you could give a few folks about helping with injuries, Jake, that if they don't have the device?
Yeah, for sure. More so than ice these days, I would almost recommend heat. And if you
Okay.
feel good with ice, keep doing ice. I think there's still benefits to ice. I'm a big fan of cryotherapy. But yeah, for sure. I would recommend heat for the most part and try to generate more blood flow in those areas, especially for recovery.
Okay. How about saunas or the red light therapy?
All of those I can nerd out for quite some time. I'm a big fan of saunas. I have been for years now. Red light therapy, the more I've read up on it, the more it seems like some of those studies are going to check out. And there seems to be a lot of benefits with red light therapy as well. So if you have access to any of those, you're definitely you're going to see some improvement in what you're doing. And definitely, if not, I would check it out because a lot of times it's what we don't do that ends up becoming the reason why we got injured.
Yeah. And the PEMF mat is also a good device to use.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. All right, Jake. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to record this podcast, and we'll talk soon.
It sounds good, Susan. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.